Hey everybody, Kaoiji here. So there's actually a lot to go over in the most recent interview with Hito and I and the dev team, and it has a lot of good things to make people excited for the region that's going to be coming out this June. And I'm not going to lie to you, after reviewing this particular interview, I can honestly say that Sega is listening, and that's really cool to see. But I'm going to let you guys be the judge. Let's go over the article. One thing to keep in mind is I'm actually going to be going over this in terms of importance, so I hope that's understandable to all of you as well. So let's start. In terms of battle powers and level, one of the big things that they're talking about is the question in terms of how difficult and or easy will it be to level. Now, they did say here, Hito says, I feel that the battle power in Kvaris is generally on the higher end. For example, the required for Battle the Purple is 2744. Looking at the numbers alone, that seems difficult to reach, especially for returning players. Are there any countermeasures in place? Sorry, I can't speak. It's par for the course for these videos. Anyway, the dev team then responds saying it makes it easier for players who took a break after completing the story in Redum, and we have prepared tasks that will allow them to gain more experience before they head to Kvaris. In addition, there will be more than 50 side tasks available in Kvaris, so you'll be able to use them to get at least one class to level 60 rather smoothly. Now, they said, at what place will you raise the level cap beyond 60? They said that it'll be 65 in October, and they're going to look into increasing the level cap in December, but they're going to review it depending on how things go. In terms of making it easier to train your character, we will be lowering the amount of experience that gets reduced when the enemy is at least 5 levels higher than the player. Additionally, the EXP reduction will be removed entirely in Battle Dia Yellow because players will use their hard-earned battle triggers to play. Meaning, all of those yellow Battle Dia triggers that you're currently sitting on right now for the Alio and Redum regions, you'll be able to use that to boost all of your other classes to their respectable levels and make that leveling process that much easier. This is a huge change compared to what they are currently, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I really like that. They go on to talk about these 2 new player actions that were originally revealed on April 28th during the headline broadcast, and these were called the throw and floating board actions. They go on to say, the first temporarily it changes your attack to a throwing action. So when you pick up an object in the field called crystalline ice, you can pick them up and throw them by pressing the normal attack button and deal tons of damage when you hit an enemy. There are also containers that you can destroy using this action, as well as a trial where it will come in handy. Other than throwing crystalline ice, you can also use this throw action to hurl bombs released by enemies back at them. We're working on developing more gameplay elements involving this in the future. Additionally, you can ride on the floating board and move faster than usual for a set amount of time. We recommend putting them to use during special trials and for effectively gathering items on a specialized course. They then talk about how there was a, really cool to play test this. They feel like the existing trials have more variation due to the unique environment of this region. Is that part of how you've reflected players' opinions and feedback from the Alio and Redum regions? Now, this is a very important question because they did say, were you able to reflect players' opinions? And that's kind of heavy. That's a heavy question. But the dev team goes on to say that we wanted to include these kinds of elements in Redum, but were unable to. And thus, players said that Redum wasn't that different from Alio and that there was not enough content. True, which is very true. So we've worked on this update and we've kept this in mind consciously worked on these new gameplay elements to fulfill players' wishes. And we believe that this is how we're able to add even more to the game than we originally planned. This leads me to talk about something that they spoke about earlier in the article, where they had mentioned that the Kvaris region is an open field that has been previously abandoned, right? This isn't something that's like, this is already an established base. As we are going here, there's only robots there. There's no human NPCs besides the one that we're going to be encountering during the story. But this region will have a lot more to do. With them going on to say that, on the other hand, there was some mini game-esque gameplay during my playtest, and we believe it was called field races, in which you run a specific course on an exploration field. Can you tell us what inspired you to add this to the game? The dev team responded, we've wanted to implement some multiplayer content outside of combat for a while now, and with this update, players will have a new way to enjoy the open field casually or alone with others. Multiple players can compete against each other in races, and solo players can play a time attack mode and try to break their fastest record. And by the way, these will not be limited to Kvaris. There'll be 2 in Alio and one in Redum. And we've got some exclusive tasks as well, and we hope that players can wind down in between adventures and battles, meaning they're going to be adding more content, and it looks like this is the first of some other mini games that'll be coming out in the future, where we might actually feel like the world is continuing to be full in terms of content and the available things to do besides just monotonously killing enemies. They go on to say that the actual enemies in Kvaris will be at least level 37, raising, and so that way players will be need to be above level 33 with a battle power of 1830 or 1813 to continue the story. So if you're not there, then there will be catch-up events and catch-up trials. But for the most part, these are things that you kind of want to take advantage as of right now while the anniversary event is going on, so you exceed these requirements by a long shot. Now, going back into the actual actions that we spoke about, Hito and I asked the question, I feel like the throw action and floating boards that we talked about now don't need to be limited to the Kvaris region and could be expanded into other areas of gameplay into the future. And are there any plans to do so? The dev team responded, we're developing a new type of quest which would require players to use the throw action to complete it, and will give further details closer to its release. Additionally, we're planning to release more content for the field races we mentioned earlier, and this will include some courses where players ride on the floating boards, so that's something to look forward to. So it looks like, again, a lot of these things that they're implementing is that they're looking to expand on all of the features available within the game. Now, while we're on the topic of content, they did wind up talking about the story and then winds up following that up with something that I honestly wasn't expecting. So Hito and I asks, I would like to talk about the story as well. Can you give us a synopsis of the story? However much you're able to share is fine. Please point out anything you'd like the players to pay special attention to. They talk about a brief synopsis here where they're, the story up to so far and where the story continues. They want people to highlight the comical exchanges, the home-like drama developments, and the action scenes are a little bit more dynamic than they were before. Hito and I then asks, was the decision to expand on character development and the storyline based on requests from players who wanted to see more? Dev team said that we had been developing these scenes before we received feedback from players, so I wouldn't say so. However, we do think that the story is stronger compared to previous regions, and I'm hoping that's true because if they give us more story, I'll be a happy boy. Anyway, they go on to say, on the other hand, in response to those requests, we decided to release regular mini events in the updates from August onward, and these will provide a deeper look into the main characters and further immerse our players into the world of New Genesis. And now I'm hoping that they're not just mini events like the ones that they did with Ina. These are actual strong character developing events that give us a much stronger relationship with the world of New Genesis. Now, this is something I feel like is very important. They talk about these skills. New skills will be added for each class. Are there any combinations that you recommend or any skills that you would like to draw a player's attention to from a development standpoint? And the dev team says there are many, but here are a few. For hunters, we recommend Sword Art's Overchange, which becomes more powerful when charged for a certain amount of time. We recommend Chain Trigger Count Retain. For gunners, this skill increases the number of chains at the start of the next chain trigger if it ends without a chain finisher. And for techers, we recommend Wand Art Skip Attack, which turns normal attacks into the third step after using a series of PAs. Players can combine this with the Wand Extra Attack, which is a new class skill that will be released at the same time, and this will add a fourth step to the wand's normal attack, making wands even more powerful. Techers, you finally don't do shit for damage. You can play your game. Let's go. I hope to see more techers. Anyway, they then go on to say Katana PA combo finish is great for bravers, and with the skill, your normal attack gets powered up after a third step of a Katana PA. There will be other skills for each class that will change the way that you can play them, so please give them a shot. Hito and I then continues to ask, we would like to know more about the skills for other classes. Are there any announcements planned? And they said, yes, we will introduce the other class skills in the NGS headline broadcast scheduled for the end of May. So please tune into that to get the latest info. Now that's something I will be covering. So hopefully we don't have to wait for too long because that's right before my birthday. And that's also right before the New Genesis update. Now they did go on to talk about some of the enemies that they showed off. Some of these enemies, some are buff enemies in Kvaris that will buff up all nearby dolls when they appear, making mob attacks even more challenging. You might even get a surprise visit from the iconic Wallon, who many players enjoy fighting. I don't know who these players are, but sure. They have a new boss enemy there, the Crocodilus, which throws an exploding object at you, and using the throw action we mentioned earlier, players can fight back by throwing it back, which makes this a new type of combat. I'm hoping it's actually kind of cool. It looks cool. This enemy looks dope as hell, but we'll see. Hidodai says that makes sense, and that's why sometimes I felt like I took extra damage during my playtest because the boss enemy was boosting other enemies. And they said, yes, exactly. So you need to be careful when fighting regular enemies that appear alongside these boss enemies, making it so that way ad phases are that much more deadly. And I think that that's all the more reason why Sega hook up with an MMO guide maker or something. But we need raids. You're like 3 steps away from it. Come on, you can do it. I believe in you. 8-man raids or 2 light parties. Come on, I'm in. Anyway, they talked about the mysterious creatures, and they said that they encountered many non-enemy creatures on the fields that are, during their playtest. And they said that these are environmental creatures. The ecosystem in Kvaris is more varied than in Redum. There's snowman-like ones, snail-like ones, creatures that look like spotted green eels, and more. And since their behaviors vary between locations, we think that players will enjoy exploring and have fun taking screenshots even more than before. So for those of you guys who enjoy taking screenshots, this update will also be very big for you. They go on to talk about urgent quests. They said, will there be 2 types of urgent quests for this region as well? And they said, yes, there will. One of them is that players will fight the Vera version of the previously mentioned Crocodilus, and this will be an urgent quest with new mechanics, introducing players to a new combat experience. And they'd like to keep the other urgent quests under wraps to avoid spoiling the fun. I don't know. I think that that's kind of going to be interesting. And they say the Rayjord Gorge. I don't know how to say that. Somebody please help. My English is lacking clearly. And then Hidodai said, I explored a sector during my playtest where the character took damage just by moving around. Could you tell me more about this? The damage is so great, I couldn't even explore it properly, so I'd like to hear about some strategies to mitigate it. And they said that this area of Kvaris is a tough exploration sector where you will constantly take low temperature damage. This is huge also because this makes it so that we might actually have exploration content that's kind of cool to be a part of. And they said to keep your energy up, you can strengthen your resistance to this damage with boost effects from the region mags, quick food buffs from Kvaris gathering items, as well as boost items from NPCs and drops. There will also be new augments that boost your resistance to the low temperature damage, so we hope that players try a few different methods and find out what works best for them. Now I know that myself, Thrift Shopping, and several other content creators will probably be looking into what works best here, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. They said is you'll want to get your character ready and buffed up for the first week after the Kvaris releases because an extremely powerful enemy will be waiting for you in the depths of the Rayjord Gorge after that. And they said about this new augment, I'm a little worried that affixing this to counter to low temperature damage would make my gear Kvaris only and less useful in other regions. Is that so? They said you're right in this particular augment will only be useful in Kvaris. However, we've also prepared other augments that combine this resistance boost with potency boosts that will be useful in other regions. So one of the examples they showed is Decold Might, which also gives us a melee weapon potency is 2.5%. So Decold more than likely will be available in all 3 of the damage types. And the funny thing they note here is that these augments will drop in the Rayjord Gorge as you fight enemies there, so you need to use the Region Mag or Quick Food Boost to get to low temperature damage resistance to take on the enemies in a sector before you get these augment capsules you need. So you gotta do everything else before you get here, so that way you can get here and make this content easy, which I think is kind of, that's kind of an okay thing with me. They did say that weapons on items will be available in the Kvaris prep campaign here, and these are some things that you kind of want to know, that there are 2 different types of weapon series here, the Scheidel and then the Evil Eclipse series, and there are 2 different types of weapons. You have the Scheisel series, which is the easiest to get from drops, and in addition to buffing your regular potency, their potential also provides extra potency against non-boss enemies, meaning this is good for ad clear. You also have the Evil Eclipse series, which is also very powerful, and you'll get increased potency as well as natural PP recovery after a sidestep dodge. Now, this is more than likely going to be really good for those players who are very dodge heavy, like katana bravers, fighters, anything of that sort. Me personally, I'm still going to have one of each of these weapons at the very least since I play 4, so that way I can have better ad clear as well as a good time against bosses. They said you can trade your Kvaris prep tickets like I mentioned before, and they are going to be adding more powerful weapons for the future when you will need to use your current ones to meet the requirements when you get them. So we believe that adding the Sheshtel or the Ebola Clip series to your armory would be very beneficial regardless. And now they did talk about the auto sell feature, which is very important. And they said that this update will introduce an auto sell feature that users have been requesting. And besides that, I'm sure many other features that have been added or improved. Are there any particular that the dev team wants to highlight? They said, this is somewhat related to the auto sell function, but we want to relieve some of the pressure on the inventory in Kvaris. To achieve this, we plan to remove the weapon and armor drops 4-star and under to increase the amount of meseta and that drop to balance things out. However, please be assured that this will not affect the silver and gold type weapons as they will drop as usual. They also plan to build a quest counter where players will be able to replay story events and quests. Finally! Oh man, I actually want that. Anyway, this feature has also been strongly requested by our players. And in addition, we will add limited time quests to this counter, so please keep an eye out for it, which honestly makes me feel like some of the quest counters that we saw over in the Central City will be finally useful. And have an NPC in them, which will be really cool. Additionally, we have a new face option called the imposing face in the works, which you can create more mature characters. So please check that out as well. Maybe I'll be able to use that. We'll see. I can already see muscular old men showing off their gains in the city using this face option. I think that's kind of funny. But they said that will there be new items for the new characters, and they'll be available in the scratch tickets. Now, here's a message from the development team, and they want, which ends off this entire article. And they say, are there any other parts you're particularly focused on or maybe struggle when developing with the Kvaris region? And the dev team says, yes, more than with past regions, we focused on expanding and adding new player actions and ways to explore. Even as we speak now and up until the release date, the entire team is dedicated to improving and making improvements so we can deliver the best experience possible to our players in June. You know what I then says, thank you very much. Last but not least, do you have a message from the development team to the players in anticipation for this upcoming release? The dev team says, thank you all very much for playing and supporting NGS. And looking at our development progress, we are confident that our players will like the Kvaris region, and we look forward to seeing you there. Stay tuned for the release of the major update in June, and we hope that you'll have fun exploring the frozen tundra. Thank you very much. And then Hito and I also says, thank you very much for your time today. Now, honestly, that's a lot to recap here. Basically, it looks like they're adding a ton of new scenarios within the game. We're actually going to get mini games. We're actually going to get new skills, things that are going to make all of the classes play better. We're going to see a brand new style of exploration zones. We're going to see new combat zones. We're going to see mini games. We're going to see a hopefully more involved combat. We're going to see a lot more out of this region, and that personally makes me excited, especially since now we'll have the ability to replay some of our previous storylines, and then hopefully with that means that the current storyline that we're currently playing will be that much more expansive, so that way we can enjoy the world of NGS that much more. What I'm also hoping is that these mini events that we wind up seeing in the future aren't just maybe one and dones, but we can also replay those into those, in that limited time or quest campaign counter. But this way we can continue to explore and find maybe some small details that we didn't notice before, because I would hope that as we continue going forward into this story in NGS, since this is chapter 3, that we are going to see a much brighter and much stronger character development for each character. I'm going to leave a link down to this article below, and if you guys want to read it for yourselves and maybe tell me there's something I missed, maybe there's something I didn't talk about. But again, seriously, I'm excited for the Kvaris region. The more we find out about it, the more they share, and I'm hoping that the headline that we see in June continues to not only give us the new roadmap, but also continues to breathe some life and hope into things that we have going on right now. So again, as always, stay awesome, stay beautiful, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace. I'm out.